Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's media availability with Premier Susan Holt. Je tiens à vous informer que des services d'interprétation sont disponibles. Vous pouvez y accéder en cliquant sur le bouton d'interprétation en bas de l'écran. I'd like to let everyone know that interpretation services are available. You can access them by clicking on the interpretation button at the bottom of the screen. And before I turn things over to the Premier, I would like to ask everyone to ensure their microphones are placed on mute. Premier, over to you.
Thank you. Tomorrow marks 1 year since New Brunswickers put their trust in Team Holt, and I am pleased to take this opportunity to say thank you. It has been an incredible honor to be your Premier for the last 364 days. Demain marque le premier anniversaire du jour depuis que les Néo-Brunswickois ont accordé leur confiance à l'équipe Holt pour être leur gouvernement. Et je veux prendre cette opportunité pour vous remercier. Merci énormément. C'est le privilège de ma vie d'être votre première ministre. Since that day, on October 21st of 2024, our team hit the ground running. New Brunswickers told us they were ready for change, that they wanted to see change. And so we got out and we got to work. And I'm going to take some time today to summarize for you some of the things that we've accomplished over the last 12 months, and then talk a little bit about what is ahead of us as we take the work of building and changing systems and really kick it into gear. Alors, je pense qu'on a accompli plusieurs choses durant les derniers 12 mois et je vais faire un petit sommaire pour vous. On a démarré sur le chapeau de roue. Toute l'équipe a sorti du bureau autour du Nouveau-Brunswick pour commencer les changements dont les Néo-Brunswickois et Néo-Brunswickoises nous avons demandé de faire. Aujourd'hui, on va revisiter quelques de nos accomplissements et on commence à se tourner sur la prochaine année et le travail qu'on a à faire. So I want to start off with New Brunswickers' number one priority, and that was their access to health care. There's a lot to talk about here, so I'm going to go through the list back and forth a little bit, French and English, and if anyone wants a refresher or details on any of these points, happy to provide it. Notre priorité numéro 1 était la priorité qu'on a entendue des Néo-Brunswickois et Néo-Brunswickoises, puis ça, c'était le système de santé et le besoin d'améliorer l'accès aux soins de santé pour les Néo-Brunswickois et Néo-Brunswickoises. So we got right to work on this one. First thing was the retention payments of $10,000 to nurses in this province to make sure that they were recognized for the work that they had put in and were retained to stay with us through this past year as we work to turn the ship. In January, we brought on 10 internationally trained family doctors who completed the Practice Ready Assessment Program, and they are now taking patients here in New Brunswick, and the second cohort of family doctors is in another Practice Ready Assessment cohort to go. We opened 7 new family health teams across the province in Fredericton, in Lamec, in Tantramar, in Carleton North, in the Miramichi, in Campbellton, in Moncton. And those new 7 family health teams have taken more than 10,000 New Brunswickers off the waiting list for care. Nous avons créé 7 cliniques de soins communautaires autour de la province avec beaucoup de divers professionnels en santé dans des coins comme Lamec, puis Fredericton, Tantramar, le Nord Carleton, Campbellton, Miramichi, Moncton. Je ne sais pas si j'ai oublié une. Et ces 7 équipes de soins familiales, nous avons permis de réduire de plus de 10 000 Néo-Brunswickois et Néo-Brunswickoises hors de la liste d'attente. Alors ça, c'est un travail qui a commencé. On va avoir 3 autres de ces cliniques qui vont être annoncées durant 2025 pour accomplir notre promesse d'ouvrir 10 cliniques collaboratives et le travail continue. On a mis en place 6,5 millions de dollars de bourses pour la formation des paramédics et des techniciens médicaux en urgence. On a fait un champ de pratique élargi pour les pharmaciens qui peut désormais traiter 3 nouveaux affectations supplémentaires. On a 8 nouvelles places en formation de médecins de famille à l'Université de Moncton, avec d'autres à venir. On a fait l'abrogation du règlement 84-20. We funded 1 round of IVF and IUI fertility treatments. We opened a new memory care unit in Woodstock, new nursing homes in Moncton et aussi à Haute-Terre. Nous avons pris le programme de foyer de soins sans mur, puis nous l'avons élargissé, portant à 30 différents établissements autour de la province. We received the benefit of $32 million investment for drugs for rare diseases to improve New Brunswickers' access. And the list goes on, but there is much more work to be done. Improving your access to healthcare remains our government's #1 priority. We will continue to focus that on care close to home that you can access with those family health teams in your communities, and you will see more of those opening up, while we've also created the conditions to transform the healthcare system with our relationships with the nurses and nurses unions, the medical society and doctors, and improvements in the foundation of the system to support New Brunswickers' health. La priorité numéro 2 des Néo-Brunswickois et Néo-Brunswickoises, pour nous autres, c'était le coût de la vie et avec ça aussi le logement. On a entendu plusieurs personnes qui nous disent qu'ils ont de la difficulté à joindre les deux bouts avec leur hypothèque, avec leur taux de loyer. Alors, quand on a commencé en gouvernement, on a mis en place rapidement le plafond de loyer de 3 %. On a vu une réduction de 10 % sur la consommation d'électricité. On a mis en place un gel des évaluations foncières. So the #2 priority that New Brunswickers expressed to us that I want to expand on today was that of affordability. Affordability across the board, and particularly affordability in relation to housing. So our government got right to work with putting the rent cap in place of 3% that was effective February 1, taking 10% off electricity consumption, freezing your property tax assessments for this year. We delivered a breakfast program to support families and students and teachers so that every kid can get a good start to their education. We've increased wages for early child care educators, personal support workers, school bus drivers, correctional officers, human service counselors, and many more. We've covered the RSV vaccine for seniors. We took 15% off of multi-unit housing constructions. We've earmarked $7.4 million for transitional community housing. Nous avons supporté plus de 2500 familles supplémentaires en appuyant les subventions directes pour les locataires. On a la maison Habitat for Humanity, des construits à Shediac, Eastern Charlotte, à Tantramar, de nouveaux logements publics à Mirimichi, Fredericton, Moncton, Saint-Stephen et Saint-Jean. Alors, plusieurs initiatives pour rendre la vie plus abordable, puis assurer que tout le monde a accès à quelque part à vivre qui est sécure et abordable pour eux autres et pour leur famille. So lots of work done on making life more affordable and making affordable housing more accessible to New Brunswickers. Lots more work to do here as we continue to expand our partnerships with the nonprofit and cooperative communities who are out there on the ground building, as we continue the work of property tax reform that'll come to fruition into the year ahead. But that's a bit of a summary. I could spend a lot of time here talking through accomplishments in every segment, but we wanted to focus on the top 2 priorities that New Brunswickers expressed to us, and then turn my attention a bit to tomorrow, where we will reopen the legislature for the next session and deliver the speech from the throne. Demain, nous présenterons le discours du trône. On rouvre la 61e session de l'Assemblée législative. This speech from the throne, last year it was set up as Ready for Change. This year it's Change in Motion, the title of the speech from the throne, because now is the time. We've put the foundations in place. We've gotten some of those initial things set up. Now we really need to get things rolling and see an acceleration of the changes that our team has made. Alors, Vous allez voir qu'on va baser notre discours du trône sur ce changement en action, mais sur les mêmes priorités que les Néo-Brunswickois et Néo-Brunswickoises continuent de nous demander de mettre en focus. Clairement, le système de santé, la qualité de vie et l'abordabilité. On a besoin de la stabilisation de nos salles de classe, la modernisation de notre économie. Alors, vous allez voir ces thèmes qui étaient là dans le discours du trône l'année dernière, qui étaient là dans notre budget, vont être là encore, qu'on doit avancer le travail où on a créé la fondation. Alors, vous pouvez y participer. Soyez à l'écoute demain à 13h pour en savoir plus. The speech from the throne is titled Change in Motion. And it reflects the fact that much of our work this year was foundational, and now things really need to roll. But you will see that our priorities have remained the priorities that New Brunswickers continued to express to us, which is the need for improvements in healthcare and access to primary care, a focus on the cost of living and on housing, a focus on stabilizing classrooms and retooling our economy so that New Brunswickers have access to good-paying jobs. Those were the themes of the past speech from the throne and budget, and you will see those again as the themes of this year's speech from the throne, and you can tune in tomorrow at 1 o'clock for more. As a little bit of a sneak preview, we will be tabling legislation on Wednesday in the House. One of the first things you'll see tabled is legislation regarding the independence of the Chief Medical Officer of Health. So that was an election promise that we made that we are moving into action this year. Currently, the Chief Medical Health Officer has limited structural independence, and that has led to perceptions of political influence that undermines the transparency that our government has talked about, as well as the ability for long-term planning. We made a commitment to be open and transparent. We've seen New Brunswickers call for the independence of this office so that they can engage freely with New Brunswickers. So some of the changes you'll see in that legislation is that the position will now be appointed by the Lieutenant Governor rather than the Minister, and that position can only be removed for cause. We've given the Chief Medical Officer of Health the authority to appoint their own Deputy Chief Medical Officer of Health and Regional Medical Officers of Health. We'll require them to submit an annual report to be tabled in the Legislative Assembly and have full control over its content. And we will ensure transparency by making any instructions from ministers, deputies, CEOs, or equivalents to be provided in writing to the Chief Medical Officer of Health, with the option for the officer to publish those directions in the Royal Gazette. Alors, un petit aperçu sur quelque chose que vous allez voir cette semaine, parce qu'on se lance au travail immédiatement. Et puis ça, c'est la déposition d'une loi importante visant à renforcer l'indépendance du médecin hygiéniste en chef, donnant suite à notre engagement électoral. C'était une promesse électorale qu'on voulait voir plus de transparence. On a vu que l'ancien MHC, il y a toujours des perceptions de l'influence politique. Et nous autres, on veut voir de la transparence et la confiance entre les Néo-Brunswickois et leur MHC. C'est vraiment important dans ces jours. Alors, on veut faire un engagement ouvert et transparent. Il y a des changements que le poste sera pourvu par le lieutenant-gouverneur plutôt que par le ministre, ne peut pas être supprimé que pour un motif valable. On va donner au MHC le pouvoir de nommer les MHC adjointes et les médecins hygiénistes régionaux. On va exiger que le MHC soumette un rapport annuel qui sera présenté à l'Assemblée législative avec un contrôle total sur le contenu. Et on va assurer la transparence en exigeant que les instructions du ministre, des PDG, des sous-ministres doivent être fournies par l'écrit et que ça peut être publié dans la Gazette royale par le MHC. Nous tenons nos promesses de veiller à tout ce que les Néo-Brunswickois soient représentés, soient informés des décisions et des recherches impartiales fondées sur des preuves. For us, it's really important across all of the work we do to make sure that we are keeping our promises and commitments to transparency and openness, making sure that unbiased, evidence-based decision-making and research are communicated to all New Brunswickers and that they have access to the kinds of information that the Chief Medical Health Officer puts forward. So that's a bit of an example of what you could expect as early as Wednesday of this week. Pour terminer, je vais partager les remerciements de mon équipe au complet. Je suis certain, si tout le monde était ici, il aimerait vous dire merci aussi. Notre équipe de 31 députés, puis notre staff aussi, ils étaient partout dans la province depuis les derniers 12 mois. Je suis certain que vous avez vu que les ministres se promènent dans chaque coin pour être à l'écoute, pour vraiment investir dans les relations avec les communautés, avec les parties prenantes, pour commencer le travail important et difficile de faire de gros changements de système, de changements de nos habitudes, de nos processus, de nos projets de loi. Notre équipe est prête à avancer ces changements, leur mettre en action dans l'année qui s'en vient. Nous sommes motivés. 1 an complet, 3 ans à venir. Les changements vont continuer. Ils vont venir avec plus d'action. On ne va jamais arrêter de vous écouter et de mettre un focus sur les relations. Mais maintenant, on va voir que le travail du changement de système va commencer à livrer de plus en plus de résultats. Et on vous demande toujours de nous tenir comptables pour nos promesses et pour notre travail dans l'année qui s'en vient. C'est notre honneur et privilège de vous servir, les Néo-Brunswickois et Néo-Brunswickoises. To conclude, I just want to wrap up that my entire team, I'm sure if they were here, would echo my thanks to all of New Brunswickers for the opportunity we've had this year. Our 31 MLAs and our staff have been all over the province over these last 12 months, myself included, out there on the ground, getting out of the office as we said that we would, listening to our partners, nonprofits, community members, and building the kind of relationships that we need in order to advance change. Because the hard work of changing habits, changing systems, changing processes, changing legislation, all has to be based on a solid understanding of each other and the strong relations required to get through big changes. We are now ready to drive those changes forward, to continue to put the work in to turning those changes into results that matter to you, your access to health care, your ability to live affordably and safely and comfortably here in New Brunswick. We're going to put those changes into motion this year. And it is an absolute honor to serve you and all New Brunswickers as your government for 2026. Alors, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
We will now proceed to questions from members of the media. Each reporter will get 1 question and 1 follow-up, and you have the right to pose your question in the official language of your choice. Nous allons maintenant procéder aux questions des journalistes. Chaque journaliste aura droit à une question qui est suivie. Vous avez le droit de poser votre question dans la langue officielle de votre choix. On va commencer avec Alex Villeneuve, Radio-Canada.
Si on vous demandait dans votre bulletin de vous accorder une note pour votre prochaine année, quelle serait-elle? Puis j'ai également parlé à des organismes qui sont montrés plutôt satisfaits, mais voudraient voir des actions dans les prochaines années et non pas seulement des bonnes discussions. Qu'est-ce que vous répondez à ces 2 aspects-là?
Moi, j'apprécie ces points parce que on sait que le travail de changement, de changer la course, est-ce qu'on dit ça? Qu'on était dans cette direction, le fait de changer le bateau pour aller dans une autre direction, ça prend du temps. Et maintenant qu'on est on voit la bonne direction, on peut aller plus vite avec le travail, si je peux le dire comme ça. Moi, je suis complètement d'accord que cette année, c'était les relations, les conversations, assurer qu'on était à l'écoute, que nos plans étaient les bonnes, que les stratégies étaient mises en place d'une façon collaborative avec le monde sur le terrain. Quand même, je pense que la liste des accomplissements que je vous avais donnés au sujet de santé, au sujet d'abordabilité et logement, c'est du progrès et c'est du progrès réel quand on parle de 7 cliniques de soins collaboratifs qui enlèvent 10 000 personnes de la liste d'attente. On doit continuer de faire du travail comme ça et aller plus loin et aller plus vite. Alors, quelle note est-ce que j'accorderais? Oh gosh. L'équipe sait que je fais ça comme chaque jour d'hier. Je pense que ça, c'était un 82. Aujourd'hui, je pense que c'est peut-être un 78. Je sais pas qu'est-ce que c'est en lettres. Est-ce que c'est comme un B- ou un C+? Je sais pas. Moi, il y a des choses que j'aimerais on aurait pu faire plus vite, faire de plus avec un plus gros impact, mais je pense qu'il y a du progrès réel. Puis, on a vraiment mis le focus sur les relations avec les partenaires parce qu'il y a presque rien que le gouvernement peut faire tout seul. C'est le travail d'être un gouvernement, c'est un travail collaboratif et les relations avec les syndicats, avec la municipalité, avec les parties prenantes, c'est vraiment important parce que quand on fait un travail ensemble, on peut aller beaucoup plus loin. Alors, cette année était l'année de gérer et investir dans les relations et ces conversations-là. Et maintenant, moi, je suis aussi, comme eux autres, hâte de voir que les actions s'en viennent rapidement et les résultats se produisent.
Selon le polymètre, qui est un tableau de bord
Ah oui,
interactif
oui.
fait par des experts pour suivre vos promesses, là, il y en a 3 qui ont été rompus dans la dernière année. L'équilibre budgétaire, l'ajustement, la fin immédiate de l'ajustement sur le carbone et la révision immédiate du rapport sur le racisme systémique. Donc, 3 promesses rompues selon eux. Qu'est-ce que vous répondez?
Ouais, ben, j'apprécie qu'il fait ce travail parce que ça c'est un outil dans la demande pour la transparence et la comptabilité. Puis nous autres aussi, je veux prendre l'opportunité de faire la promotion du site web du gouvernement qui liste chacun de nos promesses. C'est gnb.ca / accountability in English. Je sais pas, comptabilité en français. Vous allez voir toutes les promesses électorales qu'on a faites, puis vous allez voir quand il y a des checkmarks, quand les promesses sont remplies. Le 3 que vous avez mentionné, ben le revue du rapport sur le racisme systémique a été fait. On a des recommandations pour action. Ça déjà être présenté à l'interne, à l'équipe, puis il y a des choses qui avancent. Alors, la communication avec la population va venir sur ce sujet-là. Quand même, sur l'élimination de l'ajustement sur le carbone, ça va venir. Moi aussi, je pense que tout le monde sait que je suis frustrée que ça n'a pas venu dans l'horaire qu'on a prévu quand on l'a mis dans le projet de loi à l'Assemblée législative l'automne dernier, qu'on a fait ce travail demandé par l'Assemblée législative pour écouter le monde, puis donner aux commissions notre demande. Et maintenant, ça va venir avant la fin de l'année. Et puis, le budget balancé, celui-là, c'est plus difficile. Si on avait honoré cette promesse-là, je suis certain que cette liste d'accomplissements, ce serait vraiment petit parce que l'opportunité d'investir dans les soins de santé, dans les logements, dans notre économie, dans notre système d'éducation, ne serait pas là. Alors, pour arriver avec une promesse, on allait briser 30, 40, je ne sais pas combien d'autres. Nous avons pris le choix difficile de trouver la balance, assurer que l'économie et les finances du gouvernement du Nouveau-Brunswick étaient gérées d'une façon responsable avec notre ratio de dette à notre PAB est le moindre ici à l'est de Saskatchewan et on va continuer de garder un œil sur les finances qui sont durables à la long terme. Mais les Néo-Brunswickois et Néo-Brunswickoises nous demandent de leur livrer les services dont ils méritent avec accès à des médecins de famille, des infirmières praticiennes, les soins de santé proches de chez eux. Et nous autres, on va le faire, c'est la priorité numéro 1 et on continue de mettre notre focus, notre travail et nos investissements à ce dossier.
Jacques Poitras, CBC.
Hello. On this coming year being a year of change, the phrasing in some of the recent advisories on the NB Power review has mentioned final recommendations and any decisions expected by the end of March. Any decisions kind of implies that maybe no decision is a scenario. Is it possible there'll be no major change to NB Power as a result of the review?
I can't see it. We've said from the beginning the status quo is not an option. We need to make significant change to ensure that we are providing New Brunswickers with stable, affordable, competitive rates, that we have a utility that is financially sustainable, that we have the kind of reliability that New Brunswickers expect, and that we have a path forward that doesn't look like the path that we've just been on these last number of years. And so I cannot imagine a state where we wouldn't take any action. There will be action taken to improve New Brunswickers' access to reliable, sustainable energy that is competitive and affordable.
Okay. Under the changes to the Chief Medical Officer of Health that you mentioned, you said appointed by the Lieutenant Governor. Do you mean by the Lieutenant Governor in Council, as in Cabinet? Lieutenant Governor doesn't make those kinds of appointments directly.
I think we mean by the Lieutenant Governor.
Lieutenant Governor in Council?
Thank you,
So
Katie.
it's a cabinet appointment?
Different than a ministerial appointment.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Natalie Sturgeon, CHCO TV.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear
Hello?
you. Hi, Natalie.
Oh, hi, sorry. Premier, I heard you mention a lot about healthcare, but I'm specifically wondering where things stand in terms of the 2 collaborative healthcare clinics. I know St. Andrews wasn't on the list, but they've done a lot of work to kind of get that up and running on their own. I'm just wondering what the status is of St. Stephen and St. Andrews in terms of those collaborative clinics.
Thank you for the question, Natalie, because I think we're really close in St. Stephen. I was down there visiting with the team a number of months ago because we were at the point of site selection and identifying where the clinic would go so that we could get some of those practitioners out of the hospital and into the kind of space they need with the additional resources they need to serve the community. And then that frees up the space in the hospital that is desperately needed for that place to work better. So I'm very optimistic that you'll be hearing positive news on the St. Stephen Clinic within this calendar year. It's one of the 10 that we committed to up front, and we're going to deliver on that. The team in St. Andrews, you're right, they're already working collaboratively. The team at the Department of Health has been working really closely with Julie and the team there as they've expanded their resources, now expanding their space and their footprint again to continue to provide those services. So we do have a good partnership in place there with the folks at the St. Andrews Clinic, and are going to continue working with them to do more and give them the tools they need to serve more of their neighbors. And then as we slide further out, there was the commitment to the folks in and around Blacks Harbour, where we have some infrastructure in place that's perfect for a clinic, and that development's going to continue, I think, to positive outcome in 2026.
Okay, thank you. I want to stay in St. Stephen for a second. The municipal council there has struggled quite a bit with the homelessness that they're experiencing, and I know that there has been money announced for transitional housing, but I'm wondering whether the government is considering any additional short-term measures, or whether they're considering bringing municipal councils on board to the task force to allow some on-the-ground input from communities who are experiencing homelessness in the way that St. Stephen is.
I was just talking to one of the board members of our partner there at Neighborhood Works on the weekend, and we've been tracking the conversations that been happening in St. Stephen with the municipality and with the residents because it has been a hot spot in our province now for a couple years. So the team at Social Development are working with the municipality and the partners in St. Stephen, both on the out of the cold shelter as well as on the need for these transitional housing units developed in the community, and looking for the opportunities of where those could be could be best situated in and around the St. Stephen area. As far as the task force, the Minister's Task Force on Homelessness, they are building their advisory committee right now of municipal partners and others who've asked to be a part of that. So I don't have the finalized list of who specifically is participating, so I can't confirm yet whether folks from St. Stephen are on that list, but the team is in regular contact with the mayor, councillors, the CAO, and the team at our partner on the ground, their Neighborhood Works, to constantly react to the shifting situation, as well as to predict what are we going to need next, and how do we get these kinds of temporary and transitional housing in place to support the out of the cold shelter, to support the other services that are being offered to people, as we see in St. Stephen that it is, we know the whole community is engaged in this conversation and looking both to help their neighbors and ensure that their community is stable and safe.
Alexandre Boudreau, Acadie Nouvelle.
Bonjour. Vous avez peut-être vu qu'il y a eu des discussions à ce sujet dans le monde municipal francophone dernièrement. J'aimerais savoir si vous êtes ouverte à modifier la loi sur les langues officielles pour augmenter le seuil de 20% de population qui doit être atteint avant qu'une municipalité soit obligée d'offrir des services dans les 2 langues officielles. Il y a des municipalités qui disent que le seuil actuellement à 20% est trop bas et que ça bilinguise des communautés puis que ça contribue à l'assimilation. Donc, j'aimerais vous entendre là-dessus.
On n'a pas encore reçu comme une présentation formelle sur le sujet, mais oui, je suis au courant du fait que c'est une discussion qui se passe dans la municipalité. Et moi, je peux me souvenir quand c'était mis en place de l'autre bord de communautés anglophones avec une présence de 20% de francophones pour faire des changements à leur processus. Alors, je comprends les inquiétudes et la difficulté pour les communautés qui veulent vraiment protéger et assurer que leur langue officielle, ça continue d'être en force et en force majoritaire dans les communautés où ils sont majoritaires. Alors, nous sommes absolument prêts à avoir des discussions avec la municipalité de leurs besoins, de leurs enjeux et de considérer la suggestion d'un changement de la pourcentage dans la loi sur les langues officielles. À ce point, il n'y a pas beaucoup de recherches, il n'y a pas beaucoup de données pour nous laisser savoir c'est quelle communauté, à quel niveau est-ce qu'ils suggèrent regarder un nouveau limite. Puis on se demande est-ce que le limite, si ça change dans la loi, ça change pour les 2 communautés. Alors est-ce qu'on verra que des communautés arrêterait de livrer des services en français ou c'est en place au moment. Alors, beaucoup de choses à considérer, mais on comprend que c'est quelque chose qui est inquiétant et difficile pour des communautés francophones au moment, puis nous sommes prêts à en discuter avec eux autres.
Merci. Je suis aussi curieux par rapport à la session législative qui arrive. Vous en avez parlé un peu, vous avez parlé d'un projet de loi, mais j'aimerais savoir en termes du nombre de projets de loi. L'année dernière, vous aviez eu 4 projets de loi pendant la session d'automne en novembre dernier quand vous étiez arrivé au pouvoir. Est-ce qu'il faut s'attendre à davantage de projets de loi, un agenda législatif plus chargé cette fois-ci?
Oui,
avant la période des fêtes.
Il va y avoir plus de 4 projets de loi qui vont être présentés dans la session de cet automne, certainement. Je ne sais pas le chiffre exactement, mais je peux deviner 15, 16. Je peux demander à l'équipe si vous voulez le chiffre spécifique, mais oui, beaucoup, 3-4 fois plus de projets de loi cette fois que l'année dernière.
Merci.
Et peut-être j'ajouterais qu'au hiver et au printemps, c'est encore plus gros parce que beaucoup de travail qu'on fait à ce moment, on voit que le dossier de mars, avril, mai, juin, c'est rempli à ce point, puis on essaie de gérer ça.
Nick Moore, CTV.
Thank you. Hi there. One of the more eventful portfolios in your government has been education this year. A lot of things happening, but I'm pointing to school support workers, the dilemma there, and the missed deadline for the universal lunch program. What can we expect with education coming forward in the new session, and will it be prioritized any differently, or have you learned anything differently that you would apply going forward on this particular file?
Thanks for the question, Nick. We've certainly learned lots about working with the districts, with the department, with the schools, with the teachers, with the unions, with parents, with student groups, and everyone involved in making sure that New Brunswickers are getting the best possible start and the best possible education. Our focus remains the same. So what we heard from teachers more than a year ago is still the focus. We need to stabilize our classrooms, and we need to get qualified resources into those classrooms to make sure that every kid is getting what they need and that the burden isn't borne entirely by the teacher, or in some cases, the supply teacher that's filling in on a local contract. We need to make sure that the investments that we've made to put more EAs in classrooms, more academic support teachers, more behavioral intervention mentors are bearing fruit. We want to be tracking to see that the breakfast program that's designed to give kids an equal level playing field so that their results in literacy and numeracy improve, so that absenteeism decreases. Those are the measures that we announced at the State of the Province. Those are still, we think, the right things to be tracking, is how are our kids doing in terms of improving their ability to read, their abilities in math, their attendance at school, because you learn better when you're in school and when you're surrounded by qualified teachers and support people in the classroom that are helping you get there. So the year ahead is going to be really full. The focus right now is both on the education plan and getting the new education plan pulled together with those voices of parents and teachers and students and people that support the system in there, so that we can be changing our education system to keep up with the changing times. The teachers have told us we need to tackle the complexity in the class, and classroom composition has remained a challenge that hasn't been effectively addressed. And so when we talk about stabilizing classrooms and getting resources there, that's what we mean. Students are coming in with health needs, with language needs, with behavioral needs, with all sorts of different needs that teachers alone can't tackle. So we've got to build those resources around the classroom and the teacher to stabilize and ensure that we're giving kids every chance to learn to read, to learn to do math, and to have those results measured every step of the way. So that's going to continue to be the focus, to make sure the investments we made last year have actually delivered in the classroom, to take more actions to drive up those literacy and numeracy rates and drive down absenteeism, to deliver the school lunch program, an affordable school lunch program next September of 2026, in partnership with those community groups that are actively on the ground doing those services today and who told us they want to be a part of the solution. They didn't want a one-size-fits-all single government contract that was going to deliver food in a truck to their schools. They wanted to continue to leverage their local food, their local volunteers, and the knowledge they had of their community realities to get that right. So we're going to be excited for that to be in place for next September. But the focus hasn't shifted, and if anything, the partnership with the NBTA and the Francophone Association of Teachers, as well as our work with the districts and superintendents, has deepened. We've got those contract negotiations coming up this year. So a lot to do to continue to get the resources, the limited resources that we have, into the classroom to the benefit of students and their results.
Your government in the last session prioritized signing MOUs with other provinces. Is that still a priority going forward, and what can you say about that?
That's a good tee-up. I'll give you another teaser then on the legislation that's coming, because there will be legislation tabled to that effect that formalizes some of the things that you've seen in those MOUs in terms of breaking down interprovincial barriers and making sure that New Brunswick entrepreneurs can get out and compete and sell their product in other parts of this country. And so the work that we did last session on labor mobility is starting to yield some result as people realize that they can come to New Brunswick and get to work right away as a health professional in this province. We're gonna take that further with the interprovincial trade barrier work and the legislation that's coming on that front. Any new one-on-one MOUs? I don't have any, I think, scheduled for the next few weeks ahead. It's about as far as my brain can see.
Andrew Waugh, Post Media.
Premier, so I listened to what you said, and particularly on healthcare, what would you say to New Brunswickers who say, well, I don't notice any difference. In fact, things may have gotten worse. How would you speak to those people? What would you say?
Well, yeah, I absolutely can appreciate that. If you've been sitting on the waiting list for a family doctor for 3 years and now it's 4 years, then certainly nothing's changed for you, and maybe things have gotten worse because you've gone another year without access to primary care. And if you go and show up at an emergency room and see that it's full and the wait is long, then you're going to think, well, where are the changes and where am I better off? So we have a lot more work to do, but I think the fundamental shifts in transforming how we deliver primary care, putting the model in place that doctors and nurse practitioners and nurses and others have been asking for, that has really taken root this year. And so that's an upfront preventative sort of upstream solution that will yield results in the longer term, but is hard to see and feel on the ground. And so while more than 10,000 New Brunswickers might be really happy that they now have a family doctor and they feel like it's a lot better, and maybe that nurse is feeling a lot better about having a government that's shown them respect, that's negotiated their contract, that put those retention payments in place, is feeling a lot better. Maybe those students that now know they have a seat in a medical school and they can become a New Brunswick doctor with that commitment to serve here are feeling better about it. But there are still a lot of people that aren't getting the care that they need. And so the work that we're doing, whether it's Nursing Home Without Walls, maybe it's looking at how we deliver home care, how we train up and support paramedics, pharmacists, and others, all to contribute to the system, that we need to see start to snowball so that more New Brunswickers can feel the benefits that some New Brunswickers have experienced this year. Okay,
thank you. We heard a lot from the Education Minister about how the provincial assessment results on the Francophone side were very, very positive, and part of the reason why the province was moving ahead on the expanding the PD Day pilot. Those results showed no significant improvement, and in fact, in some areas, fell backwards. So what was it in that data that you and others saw that made you think this is a good idea to proceed?
That's a great question, because this is one that we are looking at really closely, as to see what impact does that change to calendar having in the Francophone system. And we've set out what impact we want to see it have on the Anglophone system with respect to both the results from students as well as the results that we need on the workforce side of things. We're quite concerned about the shortage of teachers in our system, our ability to retain the teachers that we have and to recruit the teachers that we need, so that we no longer have people educating our kids who don't have an education degree or an education in education, if I can put it that way. And we need to make sure that that the job of being a teacher is an attractive one, because you're able to deliver to the students in front of you so that they can experience those results, those improvements to reading, those improvements to math. And so we had been looking at preliminary assessment data. We've been looking at feedback from teachers and administrators in the system. I think you talked to maybe some of them, like the new president of the NBTA that was one of those pilot schools last year, the feedback from the Francophone administrators and the requests coming from the Francophone superintendents and others to continue with this pilot on the Francophone side and to advance it on the Anglophone side, to see that those results improve both for students and for teachers. So we're still watching. You're right that those first, once the final data on Francophone numeracy and literacy results came through, they didn't have the same impact that we were seeing in the preliminaries. So we're digging in. We're digging into those numbers. You would know the minister is very focused on data and evidence and making sure that we're studying not only examples around the world, but what is happening right here, and that we have taken the volumes of data that they have in the education system and actually interpreted and analyzed it correctly with our partners so that it informs these kinds of policy changes before anything goes from pilot to permanent.
Thanks, Premier.
Anna Mandan, Global News.
Hi. I know that during the campaign, one of your promises had to do with fiscal responsibility. Obviously, there has been some projections this coming year with quite a large deficit, and the projections for the coming year continue that. Is there any plans for a balanced budget going forward with your government?
Well, that's actually the phase that we're in right now, is just getting wrapped up on capital budgeting and moving into budgeting for the next year, because as we learned last year, that's pretty challenging to do in just 3 months, and so we've taken more time with it to get the budgeting right. I don't think it's a secret or a surprise to anyone in this room that the economic conditions are not better today than they were a year ago when we got into power and when Trump started threatening tariffs. And in fact, I would say that they're worse today. The economic projections of what's going to be happening in the global economy and how that's going to impact New Brunswick and what those forecasts look like for the year ahead. So still lots of tough decisions to make about what is the best and most responsible balance for the province to strike. So we look around at our neighboring provinces, we talk to our lenders and our creditors, we look at what can we do later, what do we need to do now. A lot of investments, if you postpone them, they just get more expensive to deliver on, whether that's to maintain a road or whether that's to tackle somebody's healthcare issue before it becomes acute or chronic. So those are the discussions we're having right now, is how can we continue to manage the province's finances responsibly while recognizing that New Brunswickers' finances are really strained. They need support. They need better health care. They need to know that we're going to be stimulating the economy in ways that will produce the kind of good-paying jobs that help people live a good life here. So it's a balancing act, and I wish I could tell you that the budget will be balanced tomorrow. That's not the reality. You would have seen the projection in last year's budget. You've probably seen some of the fiscal forecasts that we're looking at now. It's going to be tough, and there's going to be more and harder decisions to make in the year ahead than some of the ones that we experienced this past year.
Clear. What does that mean for your promise of a balanced budget?
Well, I mean, I promised a balanced budget in every year of our mandate, and that was not the case in year one, and it's not going to be the case in year two. And the likelihood of that trajectory getting to zero, well, I think, what did we forecast last time? I think we found ourselves at about 140, if I remember correctly, which would have been a fraction of a % of the budget when we're talking about a $14 billion budget. We're looking to stay within a manageable lane. What can we afford? How much debt can we manage? We look at things like that debt to GDP ratio, which is currently sitting at 26, 27%. We look around us at neighboring provinces that are sitting in the high 30s and the 40s. We're looking at billion-dollar deficits and budgets coming from other provinces that are investing heavily and aggressively to recruit our doctors and to attract our businesses. And so I don't foresee a balanced budget tomorrow, but we are constantly wanting to get there and making sure that we're making the decisions that will get us there as quickly as possible while delivering New Brunswickers what they need and deserve right now.
There's a number of universities reporting pretty sizable drops in international student enrollment. Is there any consideration for financial aid for post-secondary institutions trying to recoup some of the loss from smaller international student enrollment?
We've been talking with universities about this one and post-secondary, because it affects colleges and other institutions ever since the first shifts to that program were made, and they started experiencing the negative effects in years past. It's a really tough one. I know some of them have seen some increases in local enrollment, but they're doing the same things we are. They're looking at their operations. They're looking at how they operate without that kind of revenue and that kind of activity, and looking at making hard decisions. And we're having conversations with them about support. But you would have heard me talking today about our priority of making life more affordable for New Brunswickers, about delivering them health care, about tackling their housing system, and about stabilizing our primary education system at the same time as we try to retool our economy to make sure that we're realizing every opportunity that's in front of New Brunswicker that'll give New Brunswickers good paying jobs. So we're having hard conversations with the post-secondary sector right now.
Alan, Acadian Broadcasting.
Just one question I have, just regarding on the legislature, and that's coming up, is just how do you plan to keep the fall session focused and productive, given the number of priorities, especially here for New Brunswick?
That's an interesting question, and I can think of one member of my staff team that'll really appreciate that you asked that, because it's her job to try to balance everything that we can fit through a legislative agenda with the work of our priorities, many of which don't actually require legislative change. Things like advancing these collaborative care clinics, continuing to improve our recruitment practices so that we have more trained healthcare professionals, and we've recruited and brought in more of the people you need to deliver your primary care. But keeping the ledge focused, well, there's the legislature is a place where 49 elected representatives of New Brunswick are bringing forward what their constituents need and want, and that there's committees, there's members' bills, private members' bills. We focus our agenda on what New Brunswickers tell us they need most and what requires legislative change in order to advance. And then democracy works itself out, and opposition and other members engage, speak up, propose. We remain open to those changes and those proposals to make sure that we're listening and responding to every New Brunswicker, no matter who they elected. But it's a constant effort of focusing our time and energy on the right things, and then also getting done some things that just need to get done. You'd be surprised at how much exists in a legislative backlog of, when we get around to it, we should really modernize or update that act. So some of those things, as they're ready, you want to move them through, but hope that they don't take up so much time that they keep you away from the big changes that New Brunswickers need in this province.
Work times.
Yes, at its meeting last week, Tantramar Town Council passed a motion calling on your government to conduct a comprehensive environmental impact assessment of the proposed NB Power gas plant project near Centre Village. So I'm asking, does your government plan to conduct a comprehensive EIA of this project?
That's something that's being considered right now, Bruce, the EIA application from the proponent, and certainly the concerns of the community are those that, that you and I have been talking about now for quite some time, that I've been meeting with the residents of Tantramar about and engaging with their members of their city council to understand what's happening on the ground, what their experience has been with the project to date, what information that we've received. We have a lot of questions that the provincial government continues to ask of the proponent as we go through the EIA process, which includes the consideration of a comprehensive review. So we don't have a final decision on that point at this time.
As a follow-up, I'm wondering what you're hearing from members of the First Nation, the Mi'kmaq First Nations communities about this project.
Well, we've been hearing that there have been quite a bit of conversation between MTI and the North Shore Mi'kmaq Tribal Council, as well as the chiefs directly involved, like you would be close with Chief Knockwood. and that they're trying to find a new path with those organizations in terms of who's doing the representative work, who's partnering with proponents. There's actually a number of projects that both MTI and MTC have been working on, and so I think this one has prompted some pretty good conversation, and we're available and listening to see what decisions are coming out of those groups as they work through it.
Thank you.
Hina Alam, Canadian Press.
Hi, Premier. I was wondering, keeping with healthcare, how many doctors have you been able to recruit over the past year, and how many have left? And how easy or difficult has it been to recruit doctors here in New Brunswick, especially from the U.S., since so many of them are looking to move?
Oh, thank you for the question. And I'll ask the team to send you the exact numbers, because right now I am picturing the latest presentation that I received from the team about recruitment, and I think it was dated April to August. So I know you said in the last year, but the numbers that are in my head are the 47 specialists that were recruited net new, and I think there was 12 family doctors in and 12 family doctors out. But mind you, this was on the Horizon side only, and for that period of April to August. So I'll get you the exact right numbers, because I get quarterly presentations of this information of who's in, who have we added, who have we lost, and that kind of thing on a regular basis. We have found some improvement in the U.S. recruitment, so there had been focus on a couple specific areas, a couple specific events with the recruitment team going down to the U.S. and actively pulling some talent out of that and getting into conversation with folks that we want to relocate here, and working with them through the licensure process, that kind of thing. And we've seen a lot more interest, I guess, a lot more conversations in the pipeline. And I believe a couple people who have actually made the move, that we have successfully recruited and immigrated from the U.S. into New Brunswick's healthcare system at the same time as we work with the folks in the Practice Ready assessment system who've come in from other places, and at the same time as we try to train up more of our own with the seats at the Centre Formation Médicale and the other seats that we're going to be announcing the signing of here shortly. So there's all the pieces, like you say, like we're recruiting from everywhere. I think what we've put in place as the new model of primary care in New Brunswick is actually attracting some attention, because it offers more flexibility than you'll see in other provinces, even than Ontario, that now has touting the philosophical leader of the transformation of primary care models, but the way they're deploying it doesn't have the all-in approach that New Brunswick has taken in partnership with Horizon and Vitalité, with pharmacists, with nurse practitioners. Anyone who wants to build a team of people that are going to deliver primary care to New Brunswickers is finding a willing partner in the government of New Brunswick to support their technology needs, their real estate needs, their administrative support, so that they can do what they do best and see more New Brunswickers. That's why we're starting to finally see a chipping away of that list of people who were on the waiting list for care and have now been connected to family health teams in Tantramar and in Lamech and in Campbellton and in Carleton County and in Miramichi and Fredericton North and in Moncton, and we're going to continue doing that, but the doctors and the nurse practitioners and others are keen. We get people now approaching us to say, I want to do this. I want to set up a family health team. And they're getting a great warm reception from our team saying, yes, how can we help? Where, when, how soon can we do it? What do you need? You'll see that play out through the agreement with the Medical Society that we've been negotiating, that contract, getting all the pieces in place.
And the other thing I was wondering was, with everything that's going on with tariffs and things, what kind of a crimp has the movement with the U.S. put in plans for New Brunswick for you?
What kind of a crimp has Trump put in place? I mean, it's more than a crimp. It's huge. The threat of tariffs just froze investment and people's plans to expand or to hire. than the actual tariffs that were experienced on folks in the auto sector that New Brunswick supplies to, steel and aluminum that we need for a number of our sectors, and now more devastatingly softwood tariffs, the softwood lumber tariffs at 45%. That has a significant impact to the point where it actually moves our GDP in measurable ways. We're talking, I think at the worst point, it's a 0.5% decrease in GDP within this term, and it's not hundreds of jobs, it's into the 1,000+ jobs that are at risk from the impact of these tariffs. So it's been a huge negative hit on our economy, on the revenues that our economy generates. And it's taken up a heck of a lot more of my time than I thought that I would be spending in my first year in government, when I thought I would be spending time tackling healthcare and education and housing, and didn't foresee having to spend as much time as I have working with my colleagues across Canada to ensure that we have good open trading relationships with the countries that we need to, and actually now building new trading relationships with countries that we previously had been good friends with, but now really deepening the way that we engage, whether it's on defense or on minerals or on other resources and other solutions that work out in the best interest of New Brunswick. So it's been a huge curveball that I still don't think we've felt the full ramifications of, but those are coming.
Premier, did you have any closing remarks? Closing remarks?
Well, I'll say I appreciate being back here with all of you. It's nice to see you in person. For those that don't make the trip to the announcements that we're doing all over the province now, I know we've started to spread out some announcements up to the north and to the east and west and other places, and so appreciate you coming along with us as we get government out of the office and into communities with New Brunswickers. J'apprécie énormément le monde qui sont en ligne, qui s'intéresse dans le futur du Nouveau-Brunswick et dans les priorités du gouvernement. J'espère que vous voyez notre travail durant la dernière année comme un travail d'arrache-pied avec un focus sur vos priorités, avec des accomplissements réels et avec beaucoup de travail qui s'en vient. Ceci, c'était notre année de fondation. On change les relations, on change la direction du gouvernement. L'année prochaine, on s'en va et on espère de voir on planifie que le travail va accélérer, les résultats vont commencer d'être visibles. Et j'apprécie énormément que vous êtes avec nous en partenariat puis en discussion avec nous. So I want to thank the New Brunswickers that are paying attention, that are engaging with us, that give us feedback every day on the work we're doing. I want to thank the media who helps to spread the word of the work that has been done, the work that hasn't yet been done, and the work that's to come. I am really proud of our team that have worked their tails off over these last 12 months all over this province, getting to know their files, their teams, their stakeholders, their communities, building the relationships and putting in place this initial culture change and systems change so that we can then drive results and actions in this year ahead and the years to follow. So thank you for being with us 1 year in. We continue to be focused on serving you and delivering the results that you're looking for. And we look forward to sharing more of those here in 2026. Merci. Thank you.
That concludes today's press conference. Voilà la fin de cette conférence de presse. Thank you, merci et bonne journée.